Hey, and welcome to Womp, a whole new world of 3D design. If you're just starting out, then this video is for you. Within only 10 minutes, I'll explain all that you need to know to make your very own creations. Feel free to follow along as we make this cute cactus design from scratch. So here we are in a new scene. We can navigate in 3D space using our mouse. Holding down the right mouse button allows us to pan in different directions, while with the left button we can rotate around our object. Using the mouse wheel allows us to zoom in and out of whatever currently is our center. You can simply put the center on an object by selecting it and pressing the center button on the top right. Now let's start with our design, creating the pod at first. In our top bar we can find the primitive menu. We start with the curve primitive. It is our most powerful primitive and can be used in a huge variety of ways. For the pod we want to change our curve to be cylinder based. We can do that in the curves property menu at the right. Here we can also play around with density and goop strength. Next, we want to delete the second curve point and then click on point 1 to be able to edit only the point and not the whole curve. Using the buttons on our gizmo, we can stretch it down, and in the menu at the right, we can now choose a color and material, as well as add a little bit of roundness to it. To achieve the pod shape, we now copy our first curve point. We can also just hold down Alt and drag the second point out of the first one. On a Mac, you would be holding down Shift to do that. At Womp, we love a good color gradient, so for that we can change the material of the second curve point by duplicating it and changing it to a light pink. To create the upper ring, we can bring out a new cylinder shape from the top bar menu, scale it from the center as well as using the stretch buttons, and then apply our saved material also from the top bar menu. Now all we need is a hole. For that we make a copy of our curve and then turn the copy into a negative in the menu at the right. We are now subtracting from all the shapes that are above it in the scene list on the left. So we need to drag it to the very bottom to also affect the cylinder. Now we just need to drag it up and our pod is finished. To make the dirt inside of it is now really simple. All we need to do is make another copy of our positive pod curve, then drag it outside of the area since primitives only affect each other inside of the same area. Then we need to scale it a bit smaller, and while having the whole curve selected, we create a new material from the top bar menu to bring a dirt color onto it. To keep everything organized, you can name your areas in the scene list at the left. Before we make our cactus, let's add some dynamic to our models by rotating them, preparing to give the cactus some flow. Next up, we create the cactus. Here we will use what you have already learned. This time, with a sphere-based curve shape, we start forming the cactus from the ground up, making a few points to create the actual curve, with each point featuring a slightly different color to create a gradient. Copying the same curve and deleting all points apart from one, I will use it to add two little arms to the side of it. Copying and working with what's already there is faster for the workflow instead of getting out a new primitive and needing to change settings and materials from scratch again. Once we are happy with our pose, I'm taking out a new sphere from the primitive menu while having the area of the cactus selected. In that way, the primitive goes straight to the bottom of the selected area. Now I use two spheres and turn them into a negative, creating some eye holes. Now all we need to do is copy both spheres and turn them back to a positive. And change the material for them to a white color with low roughness and maybe a bit of glass. Then another pair of copies for black pupils. Just make sure they're all shiny, meaning very low roughness. Adding some final details, I will use very small spheres that I copy all around the curve here. And here we have a really cute cactus design full of character. Here I also quickly want to throw in that it's very important to keep check on the health tab that you can find in your scene list at the left. Here you can control the resolution of your areas. So if there should be any low resolution shapes or artifacts around your creations, make sure to increase the resolution or split your elements into different areas. And yet we can do so much more with this scene. At Womp, we are a fan of graphic design in 3D. So let's add some text. We can find our text tool in the primitives menu as well. When we have the text primitive selected, at the right we can type in what the text should say and customize the font as well as other settings along with the material options as well. I'm making a new text for each of those words to change up the way they look. For example, changing the thickness or font of some of these. Next, to bring it to the next level, we can add some pro materials. Those come, as the name suggests, with being subscribed to Womp Pro. We can browse through a huge variety of materials in the menu at the top bar and simply apply them to primitives or whole unions and areas. Another way to apply pro materials is by using stain. Also a pro feature which allows you to stain a shape and also to create some pretty cool transitions using the gooping function. For example, we can use it to change the green tones in the cactus here. You can also apply those to text, so let's use this beautiful yellowish rubber material for it. Lastly, to finish up our scene, we can play around with the environment lighting, like its rotation or brightness, or a completely different surrounding, and then also add some individual spherical lights which you can grab from the top bar menu. When we are fully happy with our design, at the top right we can either export our scene or publish it to the community. Clicking the export button allows us to download our scene in the form of an image or a 3D model, which you can also use for 3D printing, or even a little animation. If you're interested in learning more about animation, we do have a separate tutorial for that. And then to share our creation with the community, we click on the publish button right next to it, choose our preferred settings like thumbnail, name, hashtags or copyright settings, and then publish it to the Discover page and our community. We can't wait to see your designs up there and hope that this tutorial has been helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy womping.